everyone, thank you for tuning in. I'm your instructor Joy. Thank you very much for your continued support. I really appreciate. So today we're going to talk about arpeggios. Arpeggios are one of my favorite way of warming up and favorite way of understanding music theory. Because it forces us to understand the harmony, the interval, which will give us great way of playing in tune as well as having basic music theory to compose and work on improvisation later in different genres such as jazz. The reason why we have a hard time playing in tune often also has to do not understanding basic music theory of the relationship between notes, which we call the intervals, and arpeggio kind of forces us to work on that one. Now, when you hear there's sometimes so-and-so major arpeggio, so-and-so minor arpeggio, dominant seventh arpeggio, diminished seventh, sometimes there is subdominant arpeggio, and so on. It's a very intimidating names, and sometimes we're not sure. Carflesh has all written out different versions of it, and Galamian goes even further with coming up with different variations of arpeggio. We're not sure what to name it, what it is, and so on. So arpeggios are nothing but broken chords. Chords are the one that has to make 3 or more notes at the same time, and has to be played simultaneously. It's a little hard to do on the violin. It's easier when you do on the piano. But let's say if I want to play D major chord, I will play D after my name. It would be D major chord. Another one. And so on like that. So, but if I play one after the other, instead of not simultaneously, but one after the other, that is arpeggio. That's all about it. It's not complicated. Just playing the chords. Could be 3 or more notes, one after the other, not at the same time. Now we understood how the arpeggios are made. Now we need to understand a little more than that, a little music theory, a little relationship between notes. What makes major arpeggio and what makes minor arpeggio? Let's start with that. Like I said, arpeggio is nothing but broken chords, broken triad. Now, the chords or arpeggios are made of 3 notes. First note, third note, and the 5th note. Let's say I want to play G major chord, G major arpeggio, which is first note is G, third note would be G, A, B, 5th note would be G, A, B, C, D. So G major chord, which is supposed to play at the same time, is made of G, B, and D at the same time. If you want to play G major arpeggio, you play same notes one after the other, G, B, and D. Now, this is how it sounds, G major arpeggio. G, B, and D. Now, I'm going to play now G minor arpeggio. We know that minor keys are a little sad, a little mellow. Major keys are a little bright and happy tune, and we know that. But approximately what it makes major key and minor key has to do with the 3rd note. That's how important it is. So I'm going to play G major arpeggio again. First note, 3rd note, 5th note. Now G minor arpeggio. First note, 3rd note, and 5th note. As you know, the only difference is 3rd note. Now, so this is important of understanding the interval. From 1st to 3rd note, which we call it interval of 3rd, because it had made with 3 steps of note. When you have the 3rd made with 2 whole steps, for example, G to B, it's made of 1 whole step, G to A is whole step, again, whole step, A to B is whole step. When you have 2 whole steps, one after the other, that makes a major 3rd. That's what makes it major key. Now minor 3rd, which we use in minor key and minor arpeggio, is made with 1 whole step and 1 half step. G to A is whole step, A to B flat is half step, making G to B flat a minor third. This is when it comes to knowing how to play in tune. If you know the interval, the distance, whether it's 2 whole step or 1 whole step and then 1 half step, making minor third, it makes it much easier to calculate. Not just guessing game, not just checking by ear, but we know precise the distance between fingers. That's how it starts. Now, so here it goes, G major arpeggio. Now I'm gonna go all the way G and come back. Making 1 octave G major arpeggio. Now let's do G minor arpeggio, 1 octave. Now let's go to this fancy different names. There's also something called dominant 7th arpeggio. What is dominant? What is 7th? So you probably know the 7th is the one that you add. So we know the chord is made up with the first note, 3rd note, 5th note, now the 7th note. We're adding 1 more note. And that's basically any so-and-so 7th. That's what it means. The traditional triad or chord 3 note on top of 1 more note, the 7th note from the first one. That makes that so-and-so 7th chord. Or in this case, 7th arpeggio, because we're playing one after the other, not at the same time like chords. Dominant is a name that we put on a specific relationship in the scale. Regardlessly where you start, whether you're starting from the note C or note G or note A, the first note we decide to call it tonic. The second one subtonic, third one median, fourth one subdominant, fifth one dominant, sixth one that we call it submedian, seventh one leading tone, and eighth back to the where it started, so tonic again. Not important. Names are not important, but what is important is we know 1 octave, which is from note C to C or G to G, is made of 8 notes. And the most important one is first one, third one that decide whether it's major or minor, and the 5th one. Now, the 5th one is called a dominant. That's where dominant 7th chord come from. So let's say, if I want to play dominant note in the key of G major, you count G, A, B, C, D. That start from a D. So dominant note on G major, in the key of G major would be D. From there, you make a major triad. So remember major triad or major arpeggio. Major arpeggio is made with again, first, third, and 5th note, but between the first and third note has to be major third. That makes it major third, because D to E is whole step, E to F, F sharp is another whole step, 2 whole step makes it major third, D, F sharp. Now from the last one, the 5th note, we're finding 7th note. From the last 5th note to the 7th note, we make it minor third, making 1 whole step, 1 half step. A to B, B to C, half step therefore, making minor third. Poof, that's a lot of work, isn't it? A lot of things. Don't worry. You don't have to be able to find the dominant note, dominant 7th note. All you have to know where the dominant name comes from. It's the 5th note of any key. Yeah. So and dominant chord or dominant arpeggio is made with a major chord, whatever starting note the dominant is, and then you have to make minor third between note 5 and note 7, and that's what it is. If the dominant note is D, you would do a dominant 7th arpeggio starting on D. But let's say I want to make a dominant note, G as a dominant note, and you want to make dominant 7th chord, treating note G as a dominant 7th arpeggio, and this is what it is. And that's when we see this dominant 7th arpeggio in our book. Yeah. So they're treating note G as a dominant 7th. I'm sorry, not they're treating notes G as a dominant note. Here, dominant 7th chord starting from G and go G. Now the last one, diminished 7th arpeggio. Diminished 7th arpeggio it's one of those that when you hear the movie, all of a sudden, right before something bad happened, there's this chord, a little funky chord, and that's what the minor chord is. That's a diminished chord that you're hearing. Something like, let's say, something like this, a little dark one. Because diminished 7th chords are made only minor third, minor third, and minor third, and another minor third. Let's say minor third from G would be G, B flat, B flat, to D flat is another minor third, D flat, then F flat. That's all minor third. So if I play one after the other, that makes the diminished 7th chord starting on G. And that's when you see the diminished 7th arpeggio. So I'm going to play diminished 7th arpeggio starting on G, 1 octave. Then octave, coming down. And then you're saying, but Joey, I watched other things that has a not third, but it jumped from 1st to the 4th note. What are those? Something like this. What is the name of this? You're wondering. From G to C, G, A, B, C. It has a 1st and 4th note. Now this one is nothing but another chord, another arpeggio that we flipped. The actual original one, which we call it root chord or root position, which is a C major arpeggio, C, E, and G, making C, D, E, F, G, arpeggio of C. But we flip this G on the bottom. So instead of C, E, G, we play G, C, E, and G again. So we call it inverted. So we call it inverted arpeggio or inverted chord. But in the Carflesh book or Galamian, it's included in other arpeggio series. So it's nothing but flipped around, inverted C major arpeggio. That's what it is, which is C, E, G. When you see any other arpeggios that's not made with a 1st, 3rd, 5th, but it has a 4th or 2nd or something like that, that is most likely inverted, flipped over. Yeah, I hope this gave an idea. It ended up being much longer than I anticipated. I hope you were able to follow it a little. So now this is one of the very important steps to understand the relationship between notes, because that is a way of playing in tune by understanding it, as well as being able to compose your own music and make your improvisation if that's something what you like to do. Yeah, I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching and hope to see you again. Bye bye.